Hey, welcome to Stuff to Blow Your Mind Trailer Talk. This is our little Facebook Live show where we follow up on our podcast episodes from the last couple of weeks generally, and we discuss some of the movie tie-ins that we discuss because we inevitably end up talking about some bad films, some classic films, and this is a good opportunity to haul out the trailers and talk about them a little more.
Right, so the main episode we're going to be referencing this time is our episode on the effects of radiation. I think it was called Life After Radiation, Sickness, Death, and Sustenance. And if you go back and listen to the episode, the sustenance part will make sense. Though, in general, sustenance is not what we get from radiation. Though,
right.
if you were to watch only the movies of the 1950s, you wouldn't necessarily know that.
Right, you think that a good dose of gamma radiation is enough to just cause your body to grow uncontrollably, to make giant crabs rise up out of the ocean, and
right.
Any number of mutated horrors.
Now, we've done a whole episode on giant crabs before. I bet that's in our back catalog of Facebook videos if you want to go check that out. Surprisingly few giant crab movies. There should be more. But one of our favorite giant crab movies is Attack of the Crab Monsters, which is an atomic giant movie. There was atomic testing on an island in the Pacific, and it makes these giant psychic crabs that get their gonopods in a twist, and they want to take over the world.
And the director of that film, of course, was?
Roger Corman, the Crud Wizard himself, one of my favorites.
All right, now, but another big name in the giant monster game was Burt I. Gordon.
Oh, yeah.
And he's the director of the first film that we're going to take a look at here. This is the trailer to the 1957, I'm going to say classic. I'm just going to go ahead and say it's a classic film in my book.
As far as Burt I. Gordon goes,
yes.
This is as classic as it gets.
This is as good as it gets. This is The Amazing Colossal Man. All right, so as you can watch here on the screen, you'll see some of the images from it. This is the story of one Lieutenant Colonel Glenn Manning. He survives an atomic blast and experiences just limitless, uncontrollable growth.
He becomes like every 24 hours he's going to grow like 9 feet taller or something.
Yeah, he becomes this human giant, this colossus, dressed in kind of a, I always thought it was maybe like sailcloth or something, just like a sailcloth loincloth that he's forced to wear because he's growing so quickly.
They make a diaper for him out of one of those big parachutes that the kids use for PE class.
Yeah, and it's a silly film in many ways, but it's very watchable, and I was always so intrigued by it because with this character of Glenn Manning, you have a human at the center of this, and this is not high theater or anything, but he does a decent job of bringing emotion into this character.
He's a much better than average B-movie actor of the age. If you watch most of these 1950s B movies, and this is a whole thing. I mean, you're probably aware, but from the early 50s to the early 60s, you'd have tons of movies coming out every year with something getting big because of radiation, and most of these are incredibly stiff. They're full of these like square-jawed dudes playing military men and saying, "That's madness, you can't drop a bomb on Chicago." But this one, this guy's got some animation, he's got feelings, it would suck to keep growing 10 feet every day.
Yeah, and he gets rather irate about it, he goes on a rampage, and he has this kind of, like a big, bald, deep-speaking dude. He kind of has like a Lex Luthor quality to him, or maybe even a Judge Holden quality. So it's a lot of fun.
I see some Yul Brynner in him sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. He, kind of the pre-Brenner here.
Well, he's got that Yul Brynner edge. You know how Yul Brynner always looks like he's thinking about doing something really nasty?
Yeah.
This guy, sometimes you can see it in his face.
Yeah. So this one's good. A number of you are probably familiar with this from Mystery Science Theater 3000. They riffed this film as well as the follow-up War of the Colossal Beast, in which Glenn comes back as just a disfigured monster and he doesn't talk. It's more of a traditional giant monster film as opposed to what I think is a rather special film in the form of Amazing Colossal Man.
Now, I can't remember if you said how they defeat him at the end of this. Did you say?
Well, there's this wonderful scene where they poke him with a needle full of a growth-inhibiting toxin that keeps him from getting any bigger, and then he's shot and falls off. Yeah, they shoot him and he falls off the Boulder Dam, and that's the final showdown. But this is after a rampage through downtown Vegas, so he gets to live it up a little bit first.
Oh yeah, we see him. They do the Godzilla treatment, but it's with the dude this time, smashing stuff. Now, what's the name of there's also a movie about an amazing colossal woman. Is it The Amazing Colossal Woman? Is that right?
Yeah, Attack of the 60-Foot Woman.
Yeah, that might be right.
Yeah, same screenwriter as this because they had this movie come out. It was a hit, and they're like, all right, we need a giant woman. Who can possibly tackle this script writing job?
Wait a minute, we've got someone with experience.
Yes, there's one guy in Hollywood that can pull this off, and so they brought him in, and he wrote that film as well.
Pretty nice. Well, you got anything else about this?
No, let's move on to the next one. Yeah.
Well, the next one is another Burt I. Gordon special, also from the same year, from 1957. He released 3 movies in 1957. Mr. Big was also Mr. Busy, especially in the 50s. And The Beginning of the End, this is an atomic giant movie. It stars Peter Graves, Peggy Castle, and Morris Ankrum.
All right.
Yeah, that's a good name. But so Peter Graves, you might remember if we've talked on this little show before about It Conquered the World, one of our favorite 50s Corman movies. Wait, did Corman direct it? I think he did. At least it was Corman-associated people.
Yeah, him and Lee Van Cleef.
Yeah, Lee Van Cleef's in it, and so it's a 50s communism era movie. It's got a giant artichoke from Venus comes to Earth and tries to impose communism by brainwashing people, and Lee Van Cleef becomes his servant, doing his bidding. But in the end, Lee Van Cleef, his goodness and will comes through, and he kills the artichoke with a camp stove.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty cool, but that's a horrible movie. It ends with this great monologue. Anyway, that's Peter Graves. And maybe we can revisit later on today
I think so.
his monologue from that movie. But also Peggy Castle. In this movie, she plays a journalist who is trying to, I think she's just trying to drive down a highway or something. It's been a while since I've seen this one, The Beginning of the End. But she's trying to drive down a highway or something, gets stopped by the military. Apparently a town has been destroyed, and nobody will tell her why or what's going on. But she eventually makes contact with a scientist, played by Peter Graves, who has a plan to stop world hunger. And that plan is atomic radiation. So he wants to use atomic radiation to create giant fruits and vegetables and grains that will be able to feed people all over the world. Problem is, some bugs get into the giant fruits and vegetables, and locusts eat the atomic giant food, and then they become atomic giants, making you wonder what would have happened if the world's hungry people had eaten that food. But then the locusts rampage around and they attack the city of Chicago. They have these debates like, oh no, should we drop a bomb on the city of Chicago? And Peter Graves is morally outraged at it. I think he says, like, you can't do that. It's madness. And
this is the one with the famous scenes of the locust creeping in on the woman. Yeah.
So you can see him coming up at the windows. This one, all Burt I. Gordon movies, maybe not all the ones I've seen have giant creatures that are filmed with this photo effect where it's just something small in close-up and then superimposed on some other action going on in the foreground. And so you get that effect with the giant locust leaning in through the window as a woman cowers in horror.
Yeah, and I think he does the exact same scene in Amazing Colossal Man at some point.
Oh, really?
Woman inside, and out the window there's Glenn peeking in.
Well, the window is useful because it can, like, frame your effect. So that's nice. But anyway, Peggy Castle, who plays the journalist in this movie, I wanted to know more about her, looked her up. The anonymous authors of her Wikipedia page claim, quote, she specialized in playing the other woman in B movies, which is a perhaps dubious distinction. But then also this movie's got this guy, Morris Ankrum, who, if you see his face, you'll see him in the trailer here a couple times, I think. He's got this very rugged, that 50s B-movie military officer face.
Kind of a Sam the Eagle.
Yes,
face,
exactly. Guy who always gets cast as some kind of authority figure, military officer, or maybe assistant principal, I don't know. That kind of hawky guy. But yeah, he's in tons of movies. According to some accounts I found out today, he apparently died of trichinosis in 1964, which is not what I was expecting to discover. Trichinosis, of course, is caused by the roundworm Trichinella, and this is proof that not all parasites come from Venus or from outer space. Sometimes they come from contaminated, undercooked pork.
We have plenty to deal with on this planet, and thank goodness they don't get a hold of any gamma radiation that blows them out of proportion.
Right.
And of course, we should mention that that's one of the things we discussed in our podcast episode, Life After Radiation. Does radiation actually cause organisms to grow to phenomenal size? The short answer is no,
No.
it does not. There are a couple of cases in which it can produce exaggerated size in vegetation. And then we've observed that in the region surrounding Chernobyl. We discussed Chernobyl at length in this episode.
Pine needles, I think.
Pine needles, yeah, that's the one.
Huge pine needles.
Mm-hmm. So,
well, we also discuss an interesting example of fungus that may actually not just be mutated by radiation and caused to grow large, but actually can gain sustenance from it in a kind of, we may have called it a dark parody of the act of photosynthesis.
Yeah.
When a plant uses sunlight to convert carbon and carbon dioxide in the air into sugars, there is some indication that some of these fungi around the world may actually be able to use ionizing radiation, the dangerous kind that would normally kill you, like gamma radiation, to create usable bioenergy. And that's just a suggestion. It's been found in one study, as far as we know, not further confirmed by that. But if that's true, weird, fascinating thing to discover about life.
yeah.
But hey, should we look at another?
Let's go to the next one, yeah. And I think we're going to get a splash of color on this one if you're if you're over the black and white. Because up next we have The Death of the Incredible Hulk.
All right.
From 1990. This is, of course, a follow-up to the Incredible Hulk TV show that ran from 1978 through 1982. And that was a total of 82 episodes, by the way. Shows didn't really play around back in the day.
Right.
Now, I imagine a lot of you are familiar with this. We have, of course, Bill Bixby playing Bruce Banner, Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk, and they had this wonderful setup where it was a lot like Kung Fu, the other the TV show, where you have a wanderer going from town to town, solving problems, and there's an investigative journalist that's tracking him down the whole time.
Now, the journalist in this is a nuisance.
Yeah. Bad journalist. Tracking him down.
So that's how they generally are in 80s movies, right?
Yeah.
Like in the 50s movies, you've got the spunky journalist who wants to find out what happened, and they're often the hero. In these 80s movies, I'm thinking of like the William Atherton character in the Die Hard movies, and this creep in what's this? What do you call this Hulk series?
Well, this is Death of the Incredible Hulk,
Okay.
and this is one of 3 made-for-TV movies that they did after the television series ended. And this was just 3 years before Bill Bixby died in '93.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but I remember when this trailer was airing on TV, because I think I was 12 at the time, and as I caught it, I was like, oh man, this is a big deal. The Incredible Hulk is going to die, and there's going to be a show about it.
Yeah, it's like Death of Superman.
Yeah. Or Death of a Salesman. That would have been a good, that would have been a very interesting project if this had basically been Death of a Salesman with the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah. So he turns into the Hulk when Biff and Happy make him realize his inner emptiness.
Yeah, or what if they had done 12 Angry Men with all Hulk cast? All Hulks. Like you could get, I guess, the She-Hulk, regular Hulk, Red Hulk, various old Hulks like Hulk Dad, and
Hulk Dad.
I don't know the character's name, but Nick Nolte Hulk.
Nick Nolte in the Ong Lee movie.
Yeah. So I don't know, Hulk fan. If Christian were here, he could help us fill out this pantheon of 12 Hulks, but we'll have to wait.
When he's gone, our comic book knowledge is really lacking.
All
Hopefully
right.
he'll be back for the next one of these. Oh, well, do you want to look at the next movie?
Let's go into the next one, yeah. What do
Okay.
we have here?
The next one is one of my favorites, and it's an Ed Wood movie. This would be Bride of the Monster.
Oh.
Now, at various points, this movie had other names, like The Monster of the Marshes, The Atomic Monster, and, this is the best one, Bride of the Atom. Why didn't they keep that?
I think it's a nice one, yeah.
I think that's actually a line in the movie. So the basic plot is you've got Bela Lugosi plays a scientist, vaguely, I think, supposed to be Russian, but they don't ever say, scientist who comes to the United States and becomes a mad scientist. He's got this assistant, Lobo,
played by the magnificent Tor Johnson.
Yeah.
He's always the best special effect in any film he's in.
Yeah, that's right. It's like having him is almost like having a monster puppet.
Yeah.
Except he's a live human.
Yeah.
Who is almost as expressive as a real live human.
Yeah, and he often played he played a character named Lobo, not once, not twice, but 3 different times.
What?
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be the same character?
Well, I think in 2 cases it's Lobo, and then another time it's Lobo 2. So I guess a clone or a twin.
Audrey too.
Yeah. But then he also played a character named Miko. He played a Bruno. He played a Naboro, and he played a Beto. So I guess it's kind of typecast, as you can imagine, as big lumbering guys with O's on the end of their names.
I kind of wish he had made it into the 80s or whenever it was that Ghostbusters 2 was made, so he could have been Vigo the Carpathian.
Oh, yeah. He could have been a good one. He has such an interesting biography. So Tor was a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
And his wrestling name was the Super Swedish Angel. And this is wonderful to think of, because you see Tor, and angelic is maybe not the adjective that comes to mind, right?
No, there's a reason his face was used as the model of a common Halloween mask.
I looked into this. I was curious. Where did he get the Angel moniker? I mean, it's kind of a cool nickname, a cool wrestling name. But it turns out there was this pro wrestler back in the day by the name of Maurice Tillett, and he was big money, and he wrestled as the French Angel. Uh-huh. And so promoters just basically brought in any international wrestler they could, and they would name him, the Spanish Angel, and in this case, the Swedish Angel. And there were at least two different Swedish angels. Well, there's the Swiss Angel, and then the Swedish Angel. So yeah, angels all around.
So were all the angels, what do you call them, the good wrestlers, face wrestlers? Or were there bad angels?
I had a hard time figuring this out. I assumed Tor was a heel because look at him. He's a lumbering monster. He's not a pretty boy.
That's what you call it when there's a bad wrestler.
Yeah, you have your baby faces and your heel. Though ironically, he does kind of have a baby face. So I don't know.
That's true.
Maybe our wrestling historians can clue us in there.
Like a very large, very dangerous baby.
Yeah.
Well, in this movie, Tor plays a character who, he has some conflict, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he plays the servant of the evil Dr. Vornoff, and ultimately, God, the plot of this movie is kind of hard to remember. It's kind of murky, but basically a woman gets kidnapped by Bela Lugosi, and he wants to use atomic radiation to make her into his wife, or a wife for Lobo, I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. The bride of the atom, but then I think ultimately...
She's going to marry an atom. I guess, is the thing.
Yeah, it seems like they'd have to shrink her down smaller to make her do that, but instead he wants to make her bigger. He ends up making himself bigger, right? Bela Lugosi, there's like a scene of him with huge arms flailing around, and then he gets attacked by an octopus, right?
That's right. There's that wonderful / horrible scene in which Bella, essentially he's just wrestling a rubber octopus in a puddle at night. Uh-huh. And depending on who you ask, Ed Wood either he stole or he rented the prop from Republic Pictures. So this octopus had shown up in other films.
Yeah, I think I saw that it was in a John Wayne movie called The Wake of the Red Witch or something. Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Some kind of John Wayne sea adventure movie.
Yeah. So, yeah, the great Tor Johnson here, as well as Bela Lugosi and a rubber octopus.
Now,
quite a cast.
Bride of the Monster is really worth watching. If you get a chance to see this one, you should lay your eyes on it, because it is quite funny, and Bela Lugosi, there are scenes where he's really putting everything into it. Mm-hmm. Like, he's trying to, it was his, like you said, it was his last speaking role. So he was an old man at this point. I think he was not in great health, but there's like a scene where he gives a monologue about how he wants to create a race of atomic supermen to conquer the world. And he really gets into it. It's pretty sweet.
All right. But I think we have one more here.
Yeah.
And this is another Tor Johnson joint, if you will. This is The Beast of Yucca Flats from 61.
1961. So Tor, again, working his angelic magic in the Nevada desert, specifically in the nuclear test ranges of the Nevada desert. I think it was actually shot in the Californian desert, but it's set in Nevada, I believe. This is, I would say, I watch a lot of bad movies. Beast of Yucca Flats is legitimately one of the worst movies ever made. And I'm seriously, I mean that.
Yeah, this is one of those that was definitely featured on Mystery Science Theater 3000, and I cannot remember anything other than a few scenes of Tor Johnson lumbering across the desert.
Well, that's most of the movie. He lumbers. So it's directed by Coleman Francis, who made other really bad movies. If you've seen the Mystery Science Theater episode for Red Zone Cuba, he directed that movie. Red Zone Cuba, you might recall, if you're like, which one was that? It starts with John Carradine in a train yard singing this song called Night Train to Mundo Fine. And then some other stuff happens for the rest of the movie. I think there's a plot to go to Cuba and maybe kill Fidel Castro or something. I don't know. It's confusing and very boring and very bad.
That's one I've seen, but I have zero recollection of Red Zone Cuba.
Right. But so Beast of Yucca Flats, what happens in this one? Well, Tor Johnson plays a Soviet scientist. So he's got these like Cold War themes in the Coleman Francis movies, but he plays a Soviet scientist who defects. He comes to the United States. I guess he wants to meet a couple of his hosts in the desert or something. So they drive out to the desert, and he's got a briefcase full of something. And then some commie rats show up, and they start shooting at him, I guess trying to kill him. They're KGB assassins or something. And they chase him into the desert. And what do you know? He just happens to wander onto the nuclear testing grounds right when they're about to blow up a bomb. But for some reason, the bomb doesn't kill him, maybe because of his angelic magic. I don't know. The angelic powers protect him, but they don't totally protect him because he gets hit by this blast, and it turns Tor Johnson into Tor Johnson. And now he's Tor Johnson with ripped clothing and like some kind of paste-looking stuff on his face. It looks like, I don't know, they smeared some wet oatmeal on his cheeks or something, and it dried there. And so he wanders around in the desert, and now the main difference with him is that he kills people now.
Yeah, like he doesn't grow gigantic. He doesn't have
was
claws.
Already gigantic.
Yeah.
It's like they circumvented the growing stage. You're like, I don't know if we want to try to do all these growing effects. Why don't we just get a guy who's already huge, and then make him turn into a murderous lunatic?
Like they should have done something like Incredible Hulk would do much later. They should have he should have been the Lou Ferrigno to somebody else's, David Banner, But
yeah, I could see that.
But who was the Bill Bixby of the time? I don't know.
Yeah, there's like a tiny Russian scientist who turns into Tor Johnson. That's what exactly.
Maybe he was sick that day.
Well, I think you have thought more about how to make this a good movie than Coleman Francis did. This movie is so weird. So there's a good video on YouTube, you should look it up, of the horror director Joe Dante doing kind of like what we're doing now. I didn't know he did this, but he like looks at old movie trailers and talks about them. And there's one of him talking about this movie, and he talks about how he had a friend who worked in drive-in movie theaters, and that they would call Beast of Yucca Flats the kind of movie that they would call a chaser, which was designed to go on as the last film in a bill throughout a night.
Oh, to get everybody to go home?
Yeah, pictures to get people to drive out before the movie's over so that they could close early.
Oh, nice.
Which is pretty cool. But also, he points out that, I didn't know this before, he points out that Coleman Francis shot this movie without sound. And if you've seen it, suddenly everything will make sense because you never see people's lips moving, like you do, but you don't hear sound synchronized to it.
Right.
It's all the dialogue in the movie is they stage it so that people like turn their back when they start talking, and you just see the back of their head while they're having dialogue, or like the camera pans down to their feet while they're talking, or whatever. And a lot of the need for dialogue in the movie is completely supplanted by Francis himself just giving this running stream of bizarre narration, voiceover narration, where I want to add, these are some actual lines from the movie. There's like, music going on, dun 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 dun, and then you hear Francis's voice saying, "Flag on the moon. How did it get there?" This is in the middle of a car chase. Then also there's a scene where there's like a cowboy loitering in the desert, and suddenly, "Joe Dobson, caught in the wheels of progress."
Wow, this sounds like it sounds like out of context it could be some sort of like Gil Scott-Heron spoken word poetry,
Yeah.
But
maybe that's what he was going for. I don't know. He had some extra audio. He thought it was kind of inspiring.
Yeah.
And he's just like, yeah, this could fit the car chase scene. I don't know.
We need some audio over this. I'll just start talking.
Right.
Huh.
It's too quiet in this scene. But anyway, so that's Beast of Yucca Flats. I think the whole movie's on YouTube.
Yeah.
So that's worth a look.
That's the great thing. If you don't have, if you have lowered tastes in films, most of these are just out there sitting on YouTube, ready for you to watch in substandard quality format. So go for it.
Well, do we guys back there, do we have any questions or anything? Do we want to... Anybody have any good... No?
Well, I'll go ahead and just mention again that the episode you can find right now at StuffToBlowYourMind.com is Life After Radiation, Sickness, Death, and Sustenance.
Hey, and if you want to get more episodes like that in the future, if you're not already subscribed to the podcast, that's your ticket. Hit the subscribe button.
Right, and we also had an episode come out this week, less cheerful, but we had one called 2 Minutes to Midnight about the Doomsday Clock. That also gets into concerns about nuclear weapons. And we have one coming up next week titled Far Below the London Underground Mosquito, and that's going to get into some monstery stuff that we'll hopefully cover on a future Trailer Talk.
Right, so if you want to come back and hear us do, the great subterranean creature flicks.
Yeah, Chud, The Descent, and then one more that's a particular note.
Oh, yeah?
But we'll save it for the next one.
Okay, well,
right.
Yeah, come back and check us out next time.
All right, well, how should we close out here? How about a monologue?
Oh, yeah, what could we do? Let's leave y'all with a final thought.
It can't be given, it has to be achieved. There is hope. But it has to come from inside. From man himself.